Yeah, happy to be here.
Okay. Let's get started. First one is tell us about your faction history. Where have you been? What ranks and such? When did you get into Black Hawk Rescue Mission?
Oh man, I can start that one. So I think I joined BRM5 back New Year's 2020. So right on New Year's, I found the game and I was like, okay, this is cool. My first faction was a pretty small faction. It wasn't recognized in Platinum 5 or TRC or anything like that back in January. It was a US faction, so you know where that went. And well, I was there probably until May 31st, and my second faction was actually SASR, and I was there. I've been there ever since, but I did leave SASR around the time of August due to some drama that happened between me and High Command. And at that time, I also had my own faction, in which some people may recognize GSG9, and that was a good faction while it lasted. But I did eventually moved back to SASR, in which I found myself working a lot more than I used to on it, and then that ended up getting me recognized by high command. I built my relationship back up with those people, and then I ended up becoming brigadier at I believe I was a captain at the time, which it was a rank jump, sure, but I seemed like a lot of people trusted me, and so did one of the past brigadiers. But I think a lot of us from SASR came from smaller factions. A lot of us really don't have experience from bigger groups. I know some people do, but some of our high command have no experience, and they just come in SASR and they get all of that experience, and now they're high command now, and they're able to hold on to their duties and etc.
Gotcha. How about you, Mythic?
Well, I can't really speak too much on SASR history, seeing as I've been in the 6AR, the aerial regiment of our faction, my entire service to the SASR faction. But honestly, uh, as much as I can remember, I started BRM5 back in the December of 2019 during the Daybreak release, and I got into factions around February 2020. I found the SASR around March, like the end of March going into April. And similar to Drake, I started off in a smaller, unrecognized, and disclosed BRM5 faction. Honestly, I actually rose this faction from the ground up. And then once I got into the SASR, I started getting more into Middle Sim and BRM5 and getting as much experience as I can with the SASR faction. Uh, I honestly wish that I can do it again because like this faction a couple, let's see, maybe 6 months ago, the way how the faction was running, it was just like beautiful. Honestly, if you had been there when everything was going the way how it was going, you'd want to do it over and over and over again.
Gotcha, certainly. That's great. So what do you guys think of SASR right now? The good and the bad stuff.
Oh well, I've been brigadier, so basically faction leader since early December. So I came in, and what I've been really doing is enhancing what we have right now because we have some very old stuff that I guess nobody else cared to update. So basically, the problem we are facing is updating old stuff, and because I have OCD, I really want to make stuff perfect and make stuff organized, make it how I want it, and also look at the community and see what they want. So we've been revamping a lot of stuff, and we've also been focusing on quality because quality is a huge part of factions, and of course quantity is as well. But quality is definitely more important, and which is why we, of course, have worked on our application to make it harder. We've worked on our documents to make them more specific for people to be more experienced to come in with information. We've made sure that our certificates and basic trainings and stuff, we're working to revamp those and stuff like that. So basically, what we're just focusing on is just quality. I'm not saying quality is horrible, but it definitely could be better, especially with our officers. Officers are increasing in quality from what I've seen, and we're working on our non-commissioned officers and enlisted and whatnot. But other than that, we've done very, very well actually in terms of a lot of stuff. We have had our fair share of getting into some problems with foreign problems outside of our faction, but we always try our best to resolve those and try to stay out of it so we can focus on ourselves. But yeah, we do have good and bad, and we've had some bumps here and there. But overall, I think it's been pretty smooth sailing, and I'm trying my best to make sure that it keeps on going that way.
Sounds great. How about you, Mythic?
Well, I would say that the SASR has been in this gray area, and this gray area has been something that we've been struggling with personally for me to get out of. And honestly, as optimal as things are running right now, all operations and stuff like that that's going on with the faction, especially the way how our rank structure right now, things are stable. Our officers are making more and more attempts to get active. They're doing their best to get online and make sure that whoever needs to get what they need to get as an NCO or an officer, they're getting it done. Certificate, like just like Drakezeyy said, certificates, clearances, anything like that. Um, this gray area is something that they cannot get out of. Personally, for me right now, because of BRM5, I just feel right now that with the updates, we're not getting what we need to get to make the officers more motivated and more encouraged to play the game. If they're not playing the game, then our officers aren't active and things are just not going to be where we need it to be. But we
Yeah.
can get out of it. So,
Yeah, and to include that, COVID 19 has really taken a huge toll on our officers. Something I never expected to happen. That our own officers and their relatives are having COVID and it's affecting them. I really thought we lived in a wonderland where these people were, safe from COVID. Because I know we have some very smart people in our faction that take a protocol to be safe, but it just seems that that isn't going to help them. That we're not going to be able to escape from that. And many people officers they file what's called an inactivity notice, so they can be inactive. They have the clearance to be inactive and not host events. And some people have said, oh, I have COVID, I really just can't speak, and I can't host events. I really need to focus on this. And even I have had my own medical issues in which I've needed to address. So it's been pretty hard in terms of activity, but one thing I know is that I can't fix that. There's in no way, I don't care. There's no way that I can go into people's lives and force them to host for this faction and stuff like that. So we're just trying our best to do what we can to encourage activity, but also making sure that quality is a thing that people are receiving, and making sure that they get these courses and programs in which enhance their abilities and leadership skills and stuff like that on the field.
Gotcha. So I heard that there was some tough competition between SASR and Blackout, that's sister faction. How's it resolved, that conflict at one point?
Well, one thing I did say is that I want to stay out of drama. I'm not that kind of person that wants to get into drama. Like I said, I want to keep it to myself and make sure that my faction is running stable. I don't need to go to other factions and get nosy and stuff like that. But it is always going to be inevitable that SASR is going to get into some sort of drama, because again, we are the second biggest faction currently. And it's just going to happen, and I have to address it as best as I can. But Blackout, we did have some drama with Blackout after a case with one of our moderators. This moderator basically went AWOL, and he caused a lot of drama between Blackout and SASR. And so what I did, in which I can't specify much out of this meeting because it was Blackout and SASR HICOM. However, I did assemble a meeting with Blackout and SASR HICOM, and we addressed the problem. And I just wanted to cooperate with them and make sure that we don't get into any further tension. And it seems to be going out fine. I don't see anytime soon us going to war. I don't see us going into like breaking up our alliance or anything like that. But there is always times where we come face to face, and I try my best along with Zenga to make sure that we're being um I'd say civilized, and trying to make sure that the problem is resolved without anything malicious happening. But there has definitely been drama, and I dealt with some of it this morning from someone in Platinum 5, and I just tried to kind of explain, hey, this is what happened, and I'm being honest and stuff like that. And some people did see it, and I just try my best to stay within SASR. I'm not that loud. That's why in TRT in this server we haven't seen many articles about SASR or stuff like that because we don't really engage just because we don't want to end up getting in drama and we don't need to be involved. And I think that's just personally the best thing we can do, but it's just inevitable that something's going to pop up.
Gotcha. Mythic, what do you make of this? The previous situation.
So, as Drakezeyy said, our faction right now, we do not want to resort to any type of violence. We do not want to resort to any type of unnecessary aggression. Um, numbers is one thing. Having numbers is one thing, right? And then trying to use your numbers to exploit another faction. I'm not saying that this is what Blackout or SASR did, but in the event that we did go to war, or if we had an issue where we would go to war, that's really all it is. Basically, a faction using their numbers to exploit another. So, personally, for me, I have been doing my best to repair any relationships, personally for me, with any officers and factions that I've had issues with in the past. And recently, I've hosted an operation, a joint operation with Blackout, PASICOM, MRR, and PAF. And I'll say that this operation that I just hosted, um, it really benefited our faction's PR and my own PR because they're seeing that SASR is taking initiative to put aside any type of, how do you say, grudges against any other faction, and Blackout especially, like Blackout, our before we became allied, I think was in back in uh, October, either it was October or September, I'm not sure. When we finally allied with Blackout, before that things were really intense, and Zenga didn't want anything to do with SASR. Um, I've become really good friends with Zenga and Virtuous Disabled, and it's been really easy for me to communicate with them about this thing, making sure that nothing escalated. Because if you don't know, that factions have informants and stuff like that, and it's just it's a whole bunch of extra stuff that shouldn't be happening, but it does. And honestly, these informants can sometimes manipulate information, and the information that's related to whoever they're supposed to inform could take it the wrong way. That is why the conversations that we have privately with each other as high command members are highly significant because it prevents future problems and future wars that shouldn't be happening. So this is why I say that in the event that something major does pop off, um, it probably won't last that long because things will probably be cleared up within a day or two of everything that's happening. I think that nothing will really go off and will last. It will become an enduring issue because our faction leaders' relationships are nice. Like we're literally chill with each other. So if anybody wants to initiate a war by creating false information, like our admin, that our ex admin, what was his name, Alan, like him, if we have people doing that in the community, it's not going to affect the Platinum Five community. How do I say? Greatly. So this beef. There isn't anything that's serious that's happening between Blackout and SCS are good. We're literally moving on. We're getting past these things day by day by day. And Zenga has been such a big help in helping us prevent raids, and we've been doing the same with them. So that's for that question there.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Also noticed. So what's the future plans for SASR to increase activity? I've noticed the shift from factions going from BRM to ACS. What
Yeah.
do you make of that?
Well, yeah. One thing about that is we've seen it, and I myself as a faction leader understand how crucial it is to get updates when we need them because we depend on Black Hawk Rescue Mission 5. and we've been with that game for a year now. And we need updates from them in order to keep people engaged and give people, I mean, why play a game if if it's boring? People find BRM5 to be boring right now. But once an update comes out, everyone's hyped and activity rises. But we've been bare bones without a proper update, and so we've decided, hey, we need to go to other games and stuff like that. And we do have our own ACS game and our own ACS sub squadron, but I haven't been able to manage that. I was actually captain of that squadron, but me becoming brigadier, I can't micromanage that at all. So we've been moving on to ACS. We've been finding ACS games and managing our own ACS game, and I've given clearance for officers to host, and people have attended it. We've had a lot of people attended. People are willing to do ACS and stuff like that. We've had our ACS handbook and stuff like that. So we've definitely been prepared to go to ACS, and we also have been doing Fire Team because, of course, we are a Milsum faction, and Fire Team does require a lot of tactics, and you can't just go and run around and kill people. I mean, I guess you can, but we try to encourage people to use tactics and cooperate and do stuff like that, and people love that. So we are expanding to other games. I'm not saying that we will drop out of BRM5. We probably will never do that. I probably won't be here as Brigadier if we ever come to the point where we aren't in Black Hawk Rescue Mission 5 anymore. But we do realize it's crucial to make sure that our members are engaged and willing to attend events. And if we stick with BRM5, that's not going to happen. So we've just been trying to expand, give people stuff to look forward to. And other factions have been doing that. I know JGSDF went to ACS. Blackout has their own ACS game. BAF has their own ACS game. And we haven't worked that much as maybe BAF or JGSDF has, but we will probably kick up development again in response to this lack of update.
Gotcha. How about you, Mythic? Do you have any personal plans to increase activity?
Yeah. Honestly, my plans for the SASR are just to see the faction go back to the state that it was in its golden days. And what I mean by that is when you'd see 30 plus attendee deployments, people eagerly trying to get on to the next deployment, and people are just motivated to be there and they're not even focusing on the next rank. Honestly, we're not seeing that anymore in our faction as much as we before. So honestly, going back to that question that you asked me about, was there beef between SSL and Blackout? The reason that whole war situation came up was to bring activity. That was literally it was literally going to be like a staged war to bring members back to the faction and bring back their active members for both sides and both parties. That was allegedly what it was said to me. And I brought this to our high command, and we agreed that even if it may bring back members, there was more cons than pros that made the situation entirely nullified and voided because it can't work. Like the way how they said it to me, it seemed really good. Like everything seemed like it was going to work out, but it was more going to work out in their favor than ours, and that's how we saw it. But it didn't cause any initial beef between SDSR and Blackout. So going forward plans, I'm not going to suggest another war, but honestly, I'm going to be focusing on trying to get because I as a colonel of aviation, I can't exactly make executive decisions for infantry for the infantry regiment and the entire faction. As a colonel, I can only make executive decisions in my own regiment. Honestly, I think that as soon as BRM5 gets that flight update, our regiment will be revived and people are going to start coming back and we can start being the aviation regiment that the infantry regiment needs us to be. Um, and it's really not in our hands. As much plans as we can come up with, it's not in our hands. It's literally in Nar's hand and his dev team, his entire dev team's hands. When he wants to release that update, he will release it, and then when he does, those factions are gonna shoot up again. And I think the last thing is I think faction owner or server owner Alfonso Origin, um, him and a captain in our faction, Captain the official NORCAM, they're working on a project that they say is going to bring back our members. So honestly, I think everybody's looking forward to that. It's gonna be like a faction trailer, whatever it is. It's gonna be like super good. I saw the intro to it. It was really good. So um, I'm not saying that we're gonna rely entirely on that video, but it's just we already know what we want to do, but there's certain things that we can't do because of the way how the game is now and the way how our faction is right now. The state isn't. It's like I said before in that gray area. So once we get out of that gray area, then I'll definitely have those plans set out for everybody to see.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good. Um, so this is more of a personal question, I'd suppose. What's the most exciting thing that's happened to you in SASR? Maybe just a particular event or anything, just a small moment that happened that was pretty memorable.
Oh man, there's been a lot, and SASR is just something I would never imagine to be. It's literally like a whole fraction of my life, and there's so many events that I really consider to be great because I really dedicate an extreme amount of my time to this group. And some people may not do that, but I really do. And people kind of need me to do that to constantly push out updates, constantly develop, and stuff like that. And I wouldn't say me becoming Brigadier was the most exciting moment, but when I was a rank of an officer, and when I became regimental sergeant major. Basically, that's a rank that just manages all the NCOs and officers. It's kind of funky, and it's been like that for a bit. But I was at that rank for months. I've been at that rank for a really long time, and my most fond moments were probably at that rank. And that was during the golden age as well, when the faction was booming and we really didn't have many complaints. I mean, there were still complaints, but that's just inevitable with every faction. But me being a rank that wasn't brigadier, I look back onto that a lot. Not saying I'm gonna step down from brigadier anytime soon, but back then it was less responsibility and we just wanted to attend events, have fun, and stuff like that. I just think the past brought a lot. Was my beginning, and now there's still good moments, especially when I became brigadier. That was definitely a moment in which we'll all look back on. Not even myself, but that's really it. Can't really decide on one moment specifically. The SASR is just full of events and stuff that happens, especially with someone like me who engages in the faction a lot. It's just definitely something you have to really hold on to. The SASR is well, a lot of people in the SASR consider it to be a family. You don't just go and attend events and get promoted. There are bonds of people. There are best friends, like people that we could call brothers and family in that faction. And a lot of good moments come from hanging out with those people. And it's really bad. It's really sad to see those people ever leave or retire or deal with personal life. It means a lot to us to have those people there. It's not just a soldier on the field or someone firing a weapon or someone the same rank as you or above or below. It's friendship or even brotherhood.
Gotcha, certainly. Mythic, have you have had any memorable experiences in SASR?
Honestly, if I listed all of them, you guys would be here for a couple more hours. But I'm just gonna say the one event that was like stuck out to me a lot, and I earned a medal for it. I earned a tier 1 medal for it, the Air Force Cross. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard this story already. So I'm just gonna shorten it for you. Uh, it was an operation back in like April, and we had like the pilot had like a game malfunction or something like that. His screen froze, and only as a private, I managed to guide him over Ronograd City with Sam's up, and we got 10 out of 12 passengers or 10 out of 12 personnel into Ronograd safely. The two who died was it was due to parachute failures, and honestly, that was like the most memorable experience for me right now because honestly, I wasn't expecting to know what to do in that situation. It was literally only a month after I just started getting into factions, and honestly, if I can go back to that moment, it's just because the way how our faction looked when I first joined the game, our faction looked so organized. We had the infantry standing in front of gear tents, and they looked just so organized, like they were in four rows, and then we had aviation to the right of them, and they looked just so like professional. And when I fell in line with them, the colonel, previously the colonel of aviation, Oxford or more, he assigned me to be the co-pilot of the Heli One, and it was like a big thing for me because Heli One had a lot of high ranks at the time, so it was like if I messed up, I felt like I was gonna like ruin my entire reputation, and I actually made my reputation a lot better as a pilot in the Sixth Aviation Regiment. So this is why this moment was a lot to me. Yeah, so that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that certainly sounds quite nice. That's great. So more leaning towards divisions, just give us more of an overview about your divisions and their roles. What roles do each division play? Just a brief one.
Okay, so of course I started in the second Saber Squadron, now the fourth Saber, due to something that happened in real life that actually caused it to shut down. So the SASR does have some drama in real life, which we try to, do our best to not make that kind of let's say scrape our reputation in Platinum 5. But we have the first and now fourth Saber squadrons, and those are just the regular infantry squadrons in which everyone joins once they apply, and they're separated based on time zones. So the people in first Saber are going to be around Asian and European time zones, if I'm correct, and then the fourth Saber would be more American and you know stuff like that. So we have that, and then we have the Specialist Support Squadron, in which is a squadron dedicated to operating heavy machinery, so like mounted machine guns or just handheld or marksmen. So those are the and they're pretty good. We require a lot from them, so they're kind of also a more special unit than the others, and they just handle those weaponry and stuff like that, and they really provide a lot of assistance, especially in operations against maybe Op4 instead of AI. But we have that. Then we have the third Saber Squadron, in which um, I created the third Saber Squadron when I was captain, and that is the ACS Squadron. So everyone in Third Saber is experienced with ACS. They attend ACS events, but due to me being Brigadier, I can't really manage that all that well. So it's kind of in the mud right now. But due to BRM5 really being lack of updates, we're trying to work on that a bit more. Then aviation, we have the 171st Aviation Squadron, which is just you have your pilots and co-pilots, and I believe they are working to introduce a program for A10s as well. Once A10s come out, then we did have 173rd, which is also the same as First Saber and Fourth Saber, which is separated on time zones. But due to the lack of activity and members within the Sixth Aviation Regiment, we shut down 173rd and focused our attention on just one squadron. But that squadron, 173rd, may open up in a later future once we get back on our feet. Then we have the Airfield Defense Force, which is a sub squadron. And sub squadrons basically mean you can be in a normal squadron and be in a sub squadron at the same time. And that squadron really helps provide assistance to aerial units. So they're not just infantry, but these people will very much focus their time on making sure aerial assets are in the air, making sure pilots are safe and stuff like that. So they really focus on aviation and stuff like that. And it's a cool sub squadron. We're working a lot more on it as it was not released that long ago. But I think it's pretty cool idea, and we're seeing it in action. And then I think that is about it from us. So we don't have any like special, like really special forces or like special elite squadron or anything like that. But I we don't plan on having any new squadrons. It's not even, but basically we have three infantry squadrons, one infantry sub squadron, and we would have two aviation squadrons and one aviation sub squadron. So it's even enough, and we think that's just perfect. So I don't think we're planning on adding anything new or anything like that. We'll probably just incorporate it into our pre-existing squadrons.
Gotcha. Okay. So if you were to go to war with a few factions, as in multiple at a time, would you be fine operating alone, or would you have a preferred group that you'd be allied with in the event that war would happen in the future?
Okay. Well, if would this be war with malicious intent or just like friendly, like friendly war?
Um, I'd say friendly war. Nothing with
Okay.
malicious intent or rivalry. Just friendly
Yeah.
war.
Well, if it's not obvious already, SASR sucks at PvP, and it's always been like that. Our main concern is not PvP. We're still focusing on open world and revamping what we have with open world. But in the case we do move to PvP, we're gonna need help, and even if we're experienced or not, we still may want some people to come along for the ride. Not maybe because we need help, but we want them to also be involved and maybe have fun. But it depends at the time. Are we experienced or are we not? But we still bring people along maybe for different reasons. But I really wouldn't know who to bring. It depends on who we're going up against as well. But I don't know who I'd bring. But I want to bring factions that are I don't know. That's a really good question. I would like to bring factions that, for one, have experience in PvP. I also want to bring factions in which we have some sort of alliance with, or some sort of good ties. I don't want to bring a random faction in. I want to bring a faction we know we can cooperate and work with, and a faction we're on good terms on. So we could bring a faction and maybe like well, we're allied with factions. Let me see. I will look. So we could bring in factions like UKSF. I would love to work with UKSF. They're a great faction. We could bring in BAF or Philippine Air Force. We could bring in Blackout as well. In the case that if we want to work with Blackout, of course they would probably win. And we want to kind of bring in factions that are maybe a bit new to war. I want to bring in factions that are good at PvP but are not constantly in like these friendly wars. I want to give them an experience for them to remember, essentially. And I would invite Blackout if it came down to it, and I may even do a friendly war against Blackout someday because the Blackout really wants to. I mean, do like a friendly war. They want to do a friendly war, and I told them, hey, you guys would annihilate us, so we're gonna hold on that, but I will look at that later. But definitely pretty interesting question. There's a lot of factors in which needs to be accounted for, like who we're going up against and at what time, and rules and who's available. But probably uh, factions that could get something to remember, factions that would have fun, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Mythic, how about you? Do you have any preferred allied factions or any method of responding to friendly war?
Honestly, I don't really think I want to involve anybody else in a friendly war because I feel like that makes us low key look weak. If we're a faction of what we put out there is that we are an elite faction of distinguished personnel and distinguished officers. We go into a friendly war and we're using, I wouldn't say using, but and we're taking help from another faction, and even in a friendly war, it's just not good for our PR. And honestly, I wouldn't. And if somebody offered help, I wouldn't take it, even if they're an allied faction with us. And it's not even to disrespect them or that we're not grateful for whatever type of help they may want to offer. And it's because right now our faction is in no condition for any type of war right now. But it's not like I'm just gonna like roll over and play dead. You know what I'm saying? If it comes down to it, we need to get into a friendly war. Then all right, we'll take our best soldiers and get into it. But like, there's no way I'd want to like have other people fighting our wars. You know what I'm saying? And that's just really my
Gotcha.
take on it.
Gotcha. So this is more of a incident. I'm pretty sure this happened relatively recently. Are the claims true? SAs are attempting to steal members from other faction, as
Okay.
reports have said that one of them just, I guess, went rogue. Would you like to address that one?
Okay, well, to start, no, we don't steal members from Blackout. And again, members is a factor of factions, but we don't go into people's DMs and like join SASR. Blackout sucks. We don't do anything like that. But there was an incident this morning in which I woke up to was a message December 21st, 2020, of us just our advertisement team saying, hey, we want to have a steady lead against Blackout. We want to have we're not doing anything maliciously. We're just saying, hey, we want to have a lead against Blackout. We want to be able to have a steady pace. And so we were like, okay, we'll post advertisements at rates that may be ahead of Blackouts and stuff like that. And of course, that didn't work out, and we've never spoken of it since. But one person decided to throw a fit over that, and they were in Platinum 5 and they were making a big deal out of it. And I just said, hey, this message happened once, and I only remind people, hey, just post advertisements in Platinum 5 TRC. And we don't do anything else. We just remind people, and they post their advertisements. We have not planned to post advertisements after Blackout, like after December 21st, like that. We had that message, and we were like, oh, well, maybe this will work, because again, that was at the time Blackout was getting a lot of members, and we wanted to be number one. I mean, if you were the number one faction, I believe people would still want to have that sort of place right there. And we didn't do anything malicious. We didn't go into people's DMs and stuff like that. People will start drama, they will stir drama. And one thing about this community here is that there's a lot of people that will say stuff that just isn't trustworthy. People will make all these are these claims and arguments which just aren't true. And if you go to like HICOM of factions like Blackout SASR, or like if there's drama with SASR, the best people to address it are SASR HICOM, not NCOs, not officers, high command, because they're gonna know what's going on. But these accusations, they're false. We don't go and maliciously steal members. We don't just steal members in general. We just post advertisements, and that's really it. We try to also work on videos, because we know videos are a great factor in marketing and having that on your advertisement, and also having it on other sources like YouTube. So no, we don't do that. And whoever thinks that, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. But also, I can't go to every single person, tell them they're wrong, and I can't go to them and say, hey, you can't say that. People do have the right to think what they think is right. The only thing I can really do is just, claim if it is true or not. But if they continue to think that, then I guess that's just how it's going to be.
Thanks for addressing that. Certainly clears up the point. Mythical, what do you make of this? Do you have any idea or guess for their motives? Any raiders or anything?
Honestly, man, I've been involved with uh, highly classified faction affairs for less than a month, I'd say. If we add up all the situations and the time spent on these situations, I've been involved in highly classified faction affairs for literally less than a month. And I say that because these this accusation against the SCSR was spread by an unknown user at the time, and it was like really baffling for us because it was like why would we even spend time out of our day? This is what's going through our mind as high command officers. Why would we spend time out of our day to try to go to another faction that we're allied with, one, and two, um, we're already suspicious because before this is before we cleared up who's doing the raiding and all of that stuff. This is before Alan is banned and stuff like that. Um, like we're already suspect towards Blackout, so why would we try to jeopardize that as we're trying to build it back up with Blackout, that we are trustworthy and we are not what they are saying we are. So this is what's going through our mind, and then finally when we address the situation, it's like SASR is not that type of faction, and honestly, I was like, why would we why would we even have to have this conversation? Like, if you guys trust us, because they said that they did trust us at the end of everything, so why, if you guys trust us, would you even have this question? You know what I'm saying? And Blackout was like, Blackout leader, Virtuous Disable says that he takes my word for it because I spoke with him and he asked me, he was like, what's up with all this, like this unnecessary commotion. And I told him that honestly, I think that it's people just looking for attention and just trying to stir up commotion in the faction community. Um, and the faction community alone doesn't even get attention from the devs. So them trying to stir something up to get attention from the people who run the faction community is really just beyond us, and it's beyond me, it's beyond my peers, and it's definitely beyond the faction leaders. So honestly, this whole thing, it's really petty, and it should have never happened to begin with because it is not true. We don't um, steal members from Black. We didn't steal members from any faction. Um, I know I don't have time to do that in my day, and I know I'm sure as hell that I sure as hell know that none of the people who I am in charge of have time to do that in their day. So the answer to that question is no. We don't steal members from Blackout. So yeah, that's my take on it.
All right.
Gotcha.
Mango, you
Yeah, go ahead, Fred.
okay?
Go
So,
ahead. I gotta do my thing.
all
I
right.
need I need to get food.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. 1 second. Let me turn on this. All right. So basically, you guys are not doing any of that shady crap behind Blackout's back. Basically, that's technically what you mean, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
because what I've stated is that we don't want to get in drama, and it's we've
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
don't know
Because
what other
I mean,
yeah
whenever you're like that big of a faction and you're like in the center, you're like under the spotlight. There's gonna be a lot of
yeah
drama surrounding you. So
yeah yeah. There's no way to escape it. I was a part of GSG 9, and of course we were a small faction. We were recognized in TRC, and we did a join up with Blackout. Sure,
yeah,
we were known, but we weren't like SASR, and we weren't known to that extent. And as factions, like even Blackout, they get drama and they have problems in which they need to solve on their own accord because they are now the biggest faction, and they've been a huge faction for a good while, and it's just inevitable and impossible to avoid that someone's going to go in and stir up drama and commotion. So for the smaller factions I have experienced, we don't have that many issues. At least at the time I was a small faction owner. But with SASR and me coming in and stepping in as Brigadier, I need to make sure that I take the best approach on these situations and make sure that I am honest and make sure that the SASR is not negatively affected, and making sure that people find me as a trustworthy person as well as my high command.
yep. All right. So
I
for
want to elaborate on that real quick
yeah, go ahead.
before you continue. Um, the factions, right? Especially SASR. Um, if you were here in BRM5, in the BRM5 community back in like March, and from January to March, SASR was the most brought up name from like that time of period to like summer. And it was like just the first 6 months of 2020, SASR was the most brought up name because of the controversy between BAF and Cans of Com and SASR. And honestly, those three factions, as they were the leading factions at the time, um, SASR has been in big dramatic situations before, and it's like it's nothing new to us. So if something came up again like this, right, it wouldn't be a problem to try to defend against it because there's always going to be somebody trying to shame the SASR or trying to make the SASR look like what we're not. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if this rumor continues, right, and another rumor starts up, like it's nothing that's gonna phase SASR. It's not gonna impact us. It's nothing that we can't handle because we've already handled bigger situations in the past. So yeah, that's all I gotta say for that.
All right, all right. Okay, so many people know that like SASR has like really good internal security moderation and stuff. And it has been brought up that there's like an entire kind of like division about that. Is this like and like about raiders?
Um,
Have you guys narrowed down your search for the raiders?
Okay, so yeah, we go.
oh man, continue, Drakezeyy. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I just had to laugh.
so basically, I was a captain around this time, November, and we got a lot of raiders, and we did not know anything about raiders. I've never, in my entire time within this community, have I ever experienced any raid, and it was mind-boggling that it got to such a point, and now it's affecting other factions. But me and my head admin and my Alfonso Origin, which is of course the owner of the faction, and a moderation team, high command, we don't have a certain division that handles raiders. It's just our moderation team and our high command, and especially me, because I tell everyone just bring foreign problems to me so I can handle them. And it's just really simple. We just get those people, and we set up something called Alt Identifier, which Blackout is now experimenting with as well. And basically, that just captures to see if there's any alts on a server, and we have certain settings. So whenever we're in a raid, whenever we receive raids, we just go to raid mode. Whoever joins just gets kicked out of the server, and we just watch. And we see 10 people get kicked out of the server, and they can't do anything. Of course, there is cons. It does narrow down how many people join. Some people may, not be able to go through the, alt process, and which is why we were about, I think, 1,470 members to 1,440 right now, and we were 1,420, but now we have raised the security levels so that we can, because we're not receiving any raids. But we've definitely used that. It's greatly combated these raiders, and we have seen almost no issues with them, and with this, with what we've added. But we also have been working a lot with Blackout, in which a lot of this stuff is highly classified, and it's out of this is with Blackout as well. If you go to Blackout, I don't think they tell you as well. But we can say that we have narrowed down where these raiders are. We have narrowed down some of this stuff. We do still have assumptions rising up and etc. and stuff like that. But we are narrowing down our search, and we are working with Blackout to find out what's going on. And we also try to make sure that other factions are aware. We want to make sure that all factions within the Platinum 5 community, regardless of if they're allied with SASR, regardless if they know us, want to make sure they're safe. We want to make sure that they know what's going on. We want to make sure they know how to combat it. We want to make sure that nobody's affected, because in no way should any faction deserve to be raided.
Mm-hmm.
And SASR and Blackout got the biggest swing at first. We got hit the hardest, because they did Blackout did get raided, and then they went quiet, and then we got raided over and over again, and then it has risen to the point, surprisingly, that factions like JGSDF, let's see, Rusov, I think they may have gotten raided. TRT has gotten raided.
Correct.
We saw Kansas got raided. Yeah, so it's huge.
UKSF also got raided, I believe.
Yeah, I warned UKSF, and we went to JGSDF. We tried to help them out. Went to Kansas.com. We were like, hey, what's going on? And we went to Blackout, and we were like, hey, everything's all right. And we had raids too, and everything like that. So we want to make sure everyone's in check. We want to make sure everyone's safe. In that case, we can't just worry about ourselves here, because we are the bigger faction. People look up to us sometimes, and we want to make sure that factions are getting support. And we in Blackout, we made a joint statement. We made a statement a while back ago,
Yep.
saying the raiders and their intent, and we wanted to clear up things and know that we're here to help you guys. And we continue to do that. And TRT has also helped a lot by releasing articles in response and making sure everyone is informed. But this has risen to a whole entire new extent that some of you guys may think. It's to the point that people are getting into the games and raiding people in game. It's not just go in the text channel and copy and paste and then end up getting banned. There is underground. There's just it's just a
Yeah.
lot to talk about, and a lot of it's classified.
Yeah, it's
And I'm
honestly
so
really crazy.
yeah, I'm really surprised. And as a new faction owner, I have no experience with raids. I have no experience with all this foreign tension, and it's so surprising and actually mind-boggling that this stuff happens, and that this is such a huge community, and we combat all of this and stuff like that. And we're trying our best to make sure everyone is okay, and not just us, not just Blackout. We want to make sure everyone's okay and stuff like that.
All right, sounds good. Mythic, do you have anything to say?
I mean, like I said before, like all I had to do was just laugh because these Raiders, they're not phasing us. Like they're not phasing the SASR, they're not phasing the BRM5 community because once we turn that raid mode on, as Drakezeyy said, nobody's getting in our faction.
Yeah.
Two, Blackout and Cans of Calm, I don't know what they plan to do or what they think they're doing, but whenever people get raided, I've seen Blackout and Cans of Calm members um, actually arguing with the Raiders and like shitting on them. I'm like, guys, they're either bots or they're people that's just so slow. They're not trying to. They're trying to do something by raiding, and it's like our faction right now, not our faction, our BRM5 community right now. It's like things get so like sent to each other so fast. You say word like, yo, listen, this one faction is getting raided. Put the whole faction community on alert, and everybody's getting ready to immediately ban or kick these raiders. And that's just what's so beautiful about it. Like these raiders, they're not doing anything. And um, pertaining to who we've depicted going towards it, like we made sure that we had these conversations about these raiders, making sure that no fingers are pointed to any faction. And if factions are pointing fingers towards another faction, we'll shut it down and squash it because we know it's not them. These people they're not in the Platinum 5 community. They are like foreign like members, so they're not in the Platinum 5 community where you have a viable or tangible person to blame. These are people that they're not only here for BRM5 communities, they're also raiding other factions, and this is what I know from my informant or whatever it is. So that's all I gotta say
Yeah.
about that. They're
I
not
see.
phasing us.
I
I'm
see.
telling you right now, they're not
All right.
doing nothing.
All right. So next up, we're gonna ask community questions. So if any of you listeners have a question that you want to ask Drake or Mythic, go ahead and throw them in on topic. It's
Please do note
Mythic's
that
chance.
the questions it's serious questions. No
Yeah.
no casual or any
Joking
joke
questions. Yep.
questions. I'd appreciate that,
Yep.
please,
Please submit serious questions only.
if you have me. Um, 10 minutes to 10 minutes.
Yep.
Oh, so would I answer them as soon as they come in, or are we waiting for them to like kind of
Yeah. Answer this
just
first
all
one.
come
I'll
in?
tell you which ones to answer. Just answer the first one here.
Okay, so
Wait,
which
wait. Do you
faction?
think what are the questions?
It's an
On
on topic.
topic. On topic.
Yeah, let me
All right, go
answer
ahead.
the first one.
Yeah.
So, which faction under 150 members do you think has the most potential for growth? Well, here's the
Ooh,
thing. Let's see. I don't know how many this faction has. I don't know if it has 200. Let me find their invite link. Um, let me see. I really don't know. There's so many great factions, and the bar has really risen for these factions, and they're just amazing. They're spectacular, and I'm really happy to see these factions rising up and being comparable to these bigger groups and stuff like that. And they have so much potential. So I can't really just go ahead and say, hey, just one faction in particular. But there is one faction in which was led by a former major of aviation from of ours, in which I need to find their invite link. I'm just gonna post this invite link in my DMs to go ahead and look in just an alt account. This faction, I don't know how many members it has, but it's called the Marine Raider Regiment, and it's a U.S. faction. Some people like to say, "Oh, U.S. factions are gonna die." This faction has a lot of potential, and it's led by a person I really trust, and we did a joint operation with Operation Northwind, and they have potential, but I can't really just go ahead and say this is the only faction that has potential, because GSG9 did indeed have potential, but of course, it still does exist, but it's under, of course, a new leader and new members, but I wouldn't be able to say just one. There's so many great factions out there that have so much potential. Yes, the one owned by Frags. I think that one is good. Sometimes, yeah, that's great. Secondly, have there been moments where SASR was close to being shut down or disbanded? Well, oh man, that's an amazing question. I really can't cover the entire history of the faction. I joined May 31st. 2020, and we started January 5th. So anything before that, I have no clue if we were going to shut down or not. But after that, no. We have never been close to shutting down or disbanding. I don't know if that ever if I don't know if that ever is going to happen. I know factions,
Nah.
in maybe a couple years, I don't think we're going to be here. But anytime soon, I don't think we're going to go anywhere in terms of shutting down or disbanding, because we have such
All
a
right.
strong community and stuff like that.
Let me go back to Killjoy's question. There's two factions that I have in mind for that one. Number one, is Pasacom or Pascom, however you want to call it. It's a Filipino faction. Um, yeah, PASOK. It's led by Major General Sigma or Science Kid, however you want to call his name. Um, I did a joint operation with him, Operation Northwind, and their faction seems to be upcoming really well. And then I'm about to do another joint operation with Blackout and Spear. Spear is another upcoming faction. I haven't heard about this community before, but I think it's led by Lorenzo, something like that. The faction I'm not in the server, but they're definitely under 150 and they're getting a lot of members fast. And that's another upcoming faction for that. And
Yeah.
then the question where you said, has there been moments where SASR was close to shutting down and disbanding? Um, nah, because honestly, the faction right now we have enough people to keep the faction running, and I think that we're not going to be close to shutting down anytime soon, just because of the amount of people that we have running the faction and the amount of people that's keeping the faction going for now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's all I have
All
to say
right.
for that.
So, next question by Tackle Jam. I know you're part of UKSF. Um, do you think the BRM5 community is slowly coming to an end? Which is a very controversial question. I'm not afraid to answer it, but I don't think. Well, it's kind of hard. I separate BRM5 from just Platinum 5, just normal, and then faction. Platinum 5 faction community. So I separate it by two communities. The Platinum 5 faction community is what I'll focus on, in which we depend on BRM5. Factions like Cansoftcom and BAF have been running with BRM5 for years now. And we depend on them for updates. We can't just go to NAR and say, hey, here's an update, release it for our faction so that we are active. We can't do that. We have to wait on their schedule, and we have to see what updates they bring. And so we have seen um, a really big activity drop in terms of attending BRM5 deployments due to the lack of updates, and people aren't engaged or wanting to attend BRM5 events because it's boring. And we have, of course, moved on to ACS and Fireteam to combat this, but we're not dropping BRM5 just yet. But I talked to Zanga, and we were talking about it because he and me are kind of angry that we aren't receiving these updates when we need them, and our factions are really taking the punch. And me and Zanga kind of said, hey, if we don't get this update, if we don't get any update in February, I really do believe that Platinum 5 factions are going to die if they don't move to ACS or Fireteam. So there may be a time where the Platinum 5 faction community goes on hiatus. They go on some sort of really huge activity drop or something like that. And it's the developers that need to make sure these updates are released to make sure people are still engaged, even those who are not a part of factions. But I still don't think that within like the next 3 months, I don't think they're gonna die. But we're definitely seeing a noticeable decrease in activity and engagement, and which we need to make sure that the Platinum 5 developers need to solve, or we'll have to take it in our own hands and move on to other games, like JGSDF has done, for example.
I see. I
Let
see.
me elaborate.
Go ahead, Mythic.
Let me elaborate on that. Um, I would say that regardless of how many people are in the Platinum 5 faction community, because BRM 5 has 50,000 members, then that community is not going to. What I am worried about dying is the faction community in the BRM 5 community, and that faction community is run by maybe 10, 15 people. And quite frankly, I think that once those 10 to 15 people are gone, that may be the end of the faction community because when I know for a fact that everybody here in the faction community is either in the eighth grade or like finishing high school, so from eighth to 12th grade. And 2 years from now, nobody's gonna be playing this game. So and if the case that they are playing this game, the faction community is still wrong. It's still up, and I'm proven wrong. Then I guess it's just we didn't have anything to worry about. But I'm telling you right now that if Nar and his dev team doesn't give the community what it needs, which is the update that he's been promising, uh, we may see the end of the faction community by the end of this year, and it's way too soon, to be
Yeah.
honest. It's way too soon. Another
Next.
question: with creating a BRM 2 detachment for SASR, can you
Uh,
elaborate on that, Killjoy? I don't really understand that question.
well, BRM2. So I have not played BRM2 that much. I have played it before. I'm gonna say no, just because one thing about me is isn't BRM2 like a pretty old game? I mean, it hasn't been updated. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm
Yeah,
not
like
that sure. So
BRM5 is literally like a fan game for BRM2, no? Wasn't that like
okay, well, um, yeah, I don't think so. Because one thing, I know BRM2 is kind of older than BRM5, and I know I mean, I'm not afraid to do a BRM2 deployment and be like, hey, you guys want to play BRM2? But I would never make it a small detachment or a sub squadron or give any roles or any further attention to it. Um, there are some good role players and stuff like that. Well, we can definitely do deployments on it, but I don't think there will ever be a detachment or further attention given to it. There are some very fantastic role players. There are some fantastic people that know what realism is. When to be realistic, when not to be, and stuff like that. It's honestly really really cool, especially for someone like me that they semi milsim group, and that comes in with realism time to time. And I'm a huge fan of it. Where some people may disagree, some people may just want to go out and kill people. Sometimes we want to be realistic and we want to provide that experience. And some people may say it's Roblox, that's kind of cringe. That's what you think, but yeah, I'm not afraid to do BRM2. I'm not afraid to do any other games. We have done stuff like that before. I'm not saying we're going to go and play Minecraft or something like that, but we will expand
Yikes.
and do stuff like that. I'm not ever seeing myself making a detachment for anything other than ACS though, and I never see me in my time as Brigadier moving to a different platform. I would be very surprised if I come back to SASR in a year and we're playing Fortnite. So I don't know.
yeah.
I'm gonna be very very upset if we're playing
Um
Fortnite.
I think I had a question I kind of forgot. Let's see.
Yeah,
Final
yeah. One thing.
question.
Yeah, with Killjoy, what he added. Running around and killing the same AI over and over is very repetitive. One thing in which we've done to combat that is getting actual people, like people, they may have minimum 5 brain cells, and it's op4, so they're real people, and they basically take the position as AI. And of course, people are smarter than AI, at least BRM5 AI, and so it provides a lot more realism to have enemies not stationed in one compound or one place, and these people can drive vehicles and have like actual good accuracy and stuff like that. And these people really spice up operations. Like in operations, we will never stand well, at least not really, to go against just AI. We will have lore. Nice breathing into your mic, Vision. Are you okay?
What, bro? I'm good, bro.
What the
I'm just
fuck?
listening.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, my mic sensitivity is on like 1,000, so maybe I should lower it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're on
But if I
mobile.
can,
You were literally
I'm
like,
gonna go and push
you
the
sounded
top.
like you were breathing using like oxygen tanks or something.
He-
Holy sh!
Oh,
Jesus
yeah.
Christ.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna clear
Alright, guys,
this
is this
up.
better?
No.
No, you're raping
No.
us.
he,
Alright,
he is on mobile.
this should be better.
There we go.
Okay.
Actually, no, it's still a
Oh,
bit
okay. We'll
rapey,
just
but it's okay. It'll do. It'll work.
It's fine.
it
Just
will
leave
it will
it.
it will do. So, one thing we do to combat repetitiveness is adding lore and realism and getting role play because people really want to see lore and stuff like that because it gives a purpose to fight, gives a purpose to be there, and a purpose to do stuff like that. And of course, Op4 I already explained, and we also move on to other games and stuff like that. We get moved on to ACS and Fireteam, which people have loved that new experience and that new stuff that's seen an incredible amount of potential. Secondly, do you think SASR will ever move on to games like Arma? No, just no. I will never be here. I won't be here if we ever move on to Arma. One thing about Arma is a lot of us, we have laptops, and some of us are unfortunate to have MacBooks or like any Apple product, and we can barely run BRM5 to begin with. I know some people who can play on one graphic setting and get 5 FPS, but they still attend BRM5 deployments because that's how much they want to engage. Move on to Arma, and I don't know how that's going to perform. Saying that's also extremely realistic, and for our group being primarily 13 to 16-year-olds, the younger margin of that community is not going to stick well with this game just because of how realistic and demanding it is. Not demanding as in terms of PC parts, but in realism and stuff like that. And it would be such a huge change. I would
Yeah.
never I would not take the time to move on to an entirely different platform. I just can't. That's way too much work, especially within the year. Like we've been around for a year, and saying we have to do this, we have to go to all of our squadrons, all of our documents, our channels, and everything that we've known being BRM5 to Arma, and that's way too much work. Nobody's gonna want to do that. However, I'm not saying that we won't like secondarily move to Arma. We may be like, oh, here's an Arma deployment. You guys want to test this out? That may be cool. Like we've done with ACS and Fireteam. But moving to a platform outside of Roblox is bigger. And I mean, we've done game nights on stuff like Among Us when that was actually cool and stuff like that. But I don't see us like doing such a big change in moving to games and making it popular and stuff like
I
that.
see. Mythic, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not at this time.
Alright. Okay, so that basically concludes this interview. If you guys stay for a little longer, we'll be reading some of the confessions that got sent in yesterday. So, yeah, thank you all for coming, and Mango, would you like to say anything?